What is going on, everybody? It's Alex coming back here with another video, and today we are doing part two of this interview. Obviously, I have to record it apart from the entire interview process, and it's unfortunate, but you know what? I wanted to make sure you guys had something to watch, have fun. We're going to talk about Trey Lance today. We're going to talk about Devontae Smith, Jamar Chase, every single thing, and seeing whether LSU is DBU or not, or wide receiver U. So have fun, enjoy this. I'll see you on the far side. Peace. Okay, so speaking about ceilings, because obviously Trevor's extremely polished coming out. Like, he obviously has some red flags. Everybody has red flags. We're all human. You know? If we found somebody who had 0 red flags, there'd be something going on behind the scenes. So,
Yeah.
Obviously, there is one kid who is extremely young, extremely raw. I'm not 100% sure if he's declared for the draft, but it's pretty obvious that he's going to with his draft position. His name's Trey Lance. He's a guy who is extremely mixed opinions on. Some people say he's going to be the next Josh Allen. Some people say he could be, but he probably won't be. And then there are other people where there's like, it doesn't seem like the tape fits what an NFL scheme should be. So what are your initial thoughts if you haven't dived deep into Trey Lance yet? What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, he's another guy where watched him early in the season. He obviously only played the one game this year. So I watched that game, and then I watched 3 games from the 2019 season.
Yeah.
And you know, I agree with you. You see the flashes of talent, but he's far from a consistent player.
Yeah.
You know, it'd be an interesting case study. He probably has the least amount of passing attempts out of any quarterback that's been taken in, you know, recent history.
Yeah.
Just with him being a 1-year starter and only playing that one game, and it was kind of a run first offense. So he didn't have a lot of passing attempts. It's not like he was throwing the ball 60 times in an air raid offense. I don't remember the exact number, but he probably had 100 rushing attempts and not many more passing attempts. So he just doesn't have that time on task and, you know, the amount of tape that you want to see. And with it being so inconsistent, it is going to be a heck of a deep dive, you know, for us scouts once we kind of get into that process. But yeah, the traits are there. It's just how consistent can they become?
Yeah.
You know, he definitely fits kind of that modern NFL quarterback. You know, can win games with his arms and his legs.
Yeah.
Has that capability, but it's just going to be putting him in situations to succeed. And you know, he probably needs at least a year to sit behind a veteran and learn and grow and develop. So he's going to be very interesting. And you know, you had mentioned some people saying, is he going to be the next Josh Allen? In my opinion, their tapes are night and day difference from when I did Josh Allen coming out and from what I've seen in Trey Lance. I saw a higher level talent in Josh Allen, and I saw a lot more consistency. So I was at this stage in the process for both those players, I was much higher on Josh Allen at the time than I am currently on Trey Lance. But still have a lot more work to do with Trey, and we'll see. That's going to be an interesting one. I agree.
Yeah. So do you think his lack of experience, like you said, like probably over 100 passing attempts last year, or maybe he probably got up to 200, something like that, very low amount. Do you think how raw he is will actually scare teams? Because obviously he's been inconsistent. So obviously if he showed some consistency, he showed flashes, which is the only reason why you'll probably be drafted in the first round in the first place. But do you think that inconsistency, that lack of experience, and he kind of laid an egg this year. They still won the game with UCA, but they definitely had some balls that should have been picked off, and especially even last year during the FCS championship, Ben DiNucci kind of outplayed him in my eyes, at least. But like, obviously with all of that, do you think that, because people were saying Trey Lance could be going number 4, and it's like I'm personally stuck kind of in my opinion of like he shouldn't be close to there, but obviously you're more realistic with the NFL. Obviously, maybe a team will fall in love with him and think of him that way. So there's always a chance of it. But do you think it's realistic to say he is not a consensus top 10 pick, top 15 pick?
Yeah, I do think that's real. I don't think he's going to be a consensus top 10 pick. I think the rawness, the lack of experience, and some of the inconsistencies will definitely scare teams away. You know, a team likely will fall in love with him and take him high.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Like I said, I don't think it's consistent, and I think it might take some balls to do that, because if you're picking him that high and he doesn't develop as you hope, then it's a high draft pick that you might be throwing out the window. So
definitely. No worries.
Excuse me, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Sitting outside, just some of the pollen and stuff.
It's California dry air with all the pollen going around. I've lived there my entire life. I feel you.
But yeah, he's got so much intrigue, and he's got a pre-draft process to kind of prove himself, and talk to some teams where they can really take a deep dive. So it's going to be an interesting one. The one thing that I did like about Trey is, like against Central Arkansas, he wasn't throwing the ball well. He was completely off, but he took over the game with his legs, and he won that game for him. And he's, it might be like Lamar in a sense, where, hey, if he's having a really bad off day passing, at least you can play 11-on-11 football with him running the ball. So instead of 10-on-11 like most offenses are.
Yeah. Okay. Well, obviously that does make sense, because at least he can flip the switch, and then be able to at least be effective. So
yeah, he's definitely not as dynamic of a runner as Lamar. It's probably more kind of the sense of old school Cam, kind of a bigger power runner that can consistently stay ahead of the chains. But he's definitely even more raw than both those guys.
I know.
So
no, he's young. He's really young. I believe he's like 20 right now. He's like just barely like 20 right now, and so he's
correct.
He's like a baby. So
correct.
Obviously, it's like a Sam Darnold situation where they're so young coming into the league. I think that Sam probably would have benefited from sitting a year. And then obviously, this is probably my other question to you. What do you think is a scheme fit? Because people were telling me to go to the Panthers and stuff, but I think the Panthers have much bigger needs, especially for their draft position. And obviously, Bridge can be a great mentor and everything. But my Panthers fans have been dying to hear about, like, obviously you're not in the Panthers organization, but you've done enough tape study probably on the Panthers to be able to say, is that a good spot for him to go, especially at their draft position? I believe 8 in the draft. It might be. Yeah, they think they're 8, right behind the Lions.
Correct. Yeah. So it's going to kind of depend on what the Panthers want to do scheme-wise. I know Joe Brady's still interviewing from some head coach positions.
Yeah.
In my opinion, he's probably not the best fit in the Joe Brady offense, what they did last year. If, they had Teddy, and if that's what they want to do, I don't see Trey as that type of accurate passer, getting the ball out quickly, making the right reads, getting the balls in their wide receivers' hands to let them create on the run, on the move, and things like that. So I don't see him as the best fit if that's still what Joe Brady and the Panthers want to do moving forward.
Gotcha.
So I would struggle some with that pick. But then again, like you said, he could sit behind, Teddy for a year, learn from Teddy, and you banking on the upside and the traits and the development, and would add a dimension to that offense, running the ball that Teddy doesn't give you. So, could you convince me that it would work? Yeah. But just with what they put on film this year, right now, I don't think he's the best fit for that.
Gotcha. We're going to do a couple more questions, because obviously want to make sure that you have your time to yourself. Obviously, you're giving us your time, which is awesome. But also the fact that we don't want to post like a 10-hour video, right? So, speaking into Trey Lance, I just have one more question about him, because obviously I think he might be the most intriguing prospect, he and Fields, which I might like ask a quick little question about him as well. But do you think that Trey Lance's like inconsistencies stem from in here or in here, in the mechanics, and his physical versus his mental?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think there are some mechanical things that he needs to work on and clean up, and then mentally, probably just getting the reps and gaining the confidence.
Okay.
When you're playing with confidence and you're just letting it rip, a lot of times you're a more accurate passer than when you're might be a little bit hesitant or kind of guiding the ball and things like that. So it's probably a little bit of both from what I remember and the games that I've seen so far.
Okay. So kind of going off of another project player, one quick little question, because I would probably be committing like YouTube suicide if I did not ask you about technically the second most questionable project in this draft, Justin Fields, who's been up and down, pretty consistently up last year, but up and down this year against some very good teams. So what are your quick thoughts on him? Because obviously some people were saying it was 1 and 1A. Now I think it's 2 and 2A with Zach Wilson, guys like that.
Yeah, sure. So I haven't been able to study the films from this year really on Justin, especially the later games.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that he, in a sense, is like, Trey Lance, where got a lot of tools, a lot of upside, a lot of traits, but there are still some inconsistencies, some question marks. I think from my tape study, he is an easy way to say would be he's a better Trey Lance, in my opinion. I thought that he's more athletic, more accurate passer, but the type of dual threat quarterback that can win, with his legs and his arms. I did like Justin, and just TV scouting, watching that semifinal game. One of the best games I've ever seen. So that's going to be a real interesting study. And then the national championship game, you just don't know how healthy he was. The Northwestern game was a little bit of a struggle for him too, if I remember correctly, but I don't think he had his top receiver that game maybe. So he's going to be an interesting one to study too, but right now I have him above Trey Lance and kind of see him a notch higher in almost every category, in my opinion.
So I'm saying, that's basically what you're saying. I am not crazy. Okay, so I'm just going to ask you a quick little more fun questions. So I saw that you played football at LSU, right?
Yeah.
So tell me about kind of like what it's like to play D1 at a huge school, because obviously I have my friend Rasheed Rice here who goes to SMU. He obviously, our program's a little bit less like overpowered as like LSU is. Obviously, LSU isn't always consensus top of like the CFP, but obviously, what was it like being at a huge school in the Bayou and just be part of that culture?
It was a lot of fun. A lot of hard work. It is demanding schedule for Division I athletes, just with workouts, classes, practice, film study, still having a social life, all that kind of stuff. So kind of had to learn time management balance, but it was a blast. Really wouldn't trade it for anything.
That's wonderful. All right. Well, then another quick question is, so which school is DBU and which school is wide receiver U? Because LSU is in the conversation, but The Ohio State University also is.
Yeah. DBU, I got to go with my Tigers. LSU, I just think that the coaches that we've always had do a great job, and we find talented players, do a good job developing in them, and then just in the SEC, I think they face better competition. You play more press man coverage, all that kind of stuff, and I got to give it to my Tigers.
Okay, so what about
Although Ohio State give them a run for their money every year, and they're up there. So
So wide receiver U, would you say that's LSU or Alabama?
Pains me to say it, but I'm gonna go with Alabama.
Ooh, roll wide. Okay.
Yeah, not a big fan of Alabama, obviously, to put it nicely, but I respect them, respect what they've done, the talent that they turn out, Nick Saban, all those guys. They're incredible. So, I think we've had some studs come out of LSU, and we got some more in this draft class with Terrence Marshall and Jamar Chase, and we saw what Justin Jefferson was able to do as a rookie. So we're not too far behind them, but I think that just the sheer volume, kind of what they've put out there, gives them the nod. But hopefully we can catch them.
Okay. Well, going technically off both of that, for the final question, there is a man who is a Heisman winner in Devontae Smith, who has put together one of the best seasons, arguably, a wide receiver has ever really done in college football. People are trying to put him at number 3 to the Dolphins over Penei Sewell. They're trying to put him ahead of Jamar Chase, who obviously you've seen Justin Jefferson's success, and Jamar arguably was better than that. And I think a lot of people would say he was better than that, especially as a deep threat. So I have a huge issue with his size. he said he was going to come back to Alabama, put on weight. He couldn't do it. That's a little bit scary to me. I know obviously it's COVID, so like the gym, you can't be in the gym 24/7, can't be eating with all your buddies. So maybe there was a little bit of that factored into it, but he's 23 years old at 175 pounds. People are saying it's Marvin Harrison, but I don't think Marvin Harrison promised that he was going to be putting on a ton of weight and then failing to do so.
Yeah. The frame and the weight is concerning. When you see him in person, it's probably even more glaring than on film. Just real thin, small joint, small waist. But with that being said, and I haven't fully studied him, he's tough as nails. He's a dog. The frame and quote unquote lack of play strength doesn't show up as often as one would think in the film that I've seen.
Yeah.
So, and he's had to deal with it his whole life, and he's found a way. He seems like he's just a real instinctive football player that comes up big when the big moments. It's hard to find a negative on him except for what everybody says, the body type and the weight. But
definitely
from the little film that I've seen, it doesn't impact his play in a negative way. Offenses can get creative now, put him in the slot or off the ball, keep him away from press coverage, switch releases, that kind of stuff. So don't see it being a huge issue. It's when we talk about taking him at 3 overall, in my opinion, that's too high.
Yeah,
I wouldn't take him that high from the little I've seen. I don't even think I'd take a wide receiver that high, in my personal opinion. If I did, he better be an absolute freak show like Calvin Johnson or something.
That's exactly.
Donta Smith is heck of a football player, had a heck of a college year, and I think he'll be a really good pro. In my opinion, again, the little that I've seen, I think Jamar Chase is better. I would put him above Donta Smith. Basically did the same thing, but was younger. And think he still has a lot more upside than Donta Smith does.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a consensus idea that either the Eagles or the Dolphins are going to be taking the receivers. When do you think? What is the latest?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. What is the latest pick that you can see Devontae Smith going versus Jamar Chase? Like, what's the last pick where they will both be off the board?
Sorry, I think I lost you. I think I'm having my headphones.
No worries. So where do you think? What pick will either Devontae Smith or Jamar Chase be taken where the other one's already off the board? Where are they going to be? Where's it going to stop?
Oh, I see it. So at what pick are they both gone?
Yes. That's probably a better way of phrasing it.
I
think it's the Lions, man. I think the Eagles and the Lions are going to be vying for both those guys.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And from what I've seen in this class, it does seem like there's a lack of really elite high-end talent at some of the more premium positions like pass rusher and things like that. So
those 2 wide receivers could definitely possibly go in the top 10. Just some of the lack of elite talent at the premium positions like pass rusher, and like another guy that you could throw in that mix at a non-premium position that could go higher. It's Kyle Pitts. Just it's going to be interesting with those 3 pass catchers where to see them go. If you're kind of looking at the board, it seems like they are going to be, pretty highly graded and possibly all top 10 picks. Where
do you think Pitts would go? Because like as the board falls, it just doesn't seem like a team has tight end / wide receiver to be such a big need. I know some people are saying the Panthers, but I'm pretty sure the Panthers don't really want to be going for another offensive weapon when they had 4 or 5 1,000-yard players last year. Obviously, they might be losing Deebo Samuel to cap, but where do you think that he actually goes?
It's gonna be that'll be an interesting one. I think with just the evolution of some of the offensive games, head coach or offensive coordinator might get really enamored with him, and sometimes a big tight end target like that is really beneficial for a young quarterback. So just kind of depending on the makeup of the team or the OC, I think that he could potentially get pushed up. Let me pull up the draft order again real quick, just kind of.
It's interesting because I love Kyle Pitts. He was like one of the. I just kept watching him. I think it was 2 years ago that he like first came out and took his first starting reps or something like that, or like his first reps, and I was just like, what's different about this dude than last year? Because he popped up again, and I'm just like, because I always write the names down, people would just pop off randomly, and then I saw consistency. I was like, oh, okay, who is this guy? And I was scared to put him as a first round tight end because it's like tight ends usually don't go in the first. But right. It's just built differently. You just see him; he's a game changer.
Yeah.
It's just
no, I mean, you're right. Looking at the kind of the positional fits for the teams in the top 10, little tough to slot him there.
Yeah.
Just kind of gets more interesting for him to come and play if a team might trade up or trade back or something like that.
Okay. So do you think like a team under the situation that, let's just say Jamar Chase goes to let's just say wide receiver goes really early and the Eagles lose their star wide receiver and they end up drafting Caleb Farley or Patrick Surtain, and that means that, of course, usually like by the time of the Cowboys pick, they won't have the number one corner. Do you think they could trade back for a team that might want Kyle Pitts so they can slot in at number 10 to get him? Or do you think that he actually just might naturally fall?
I think possibly both. And I think he naturally might fall, just the nature of the position and some of the team needs of those teams. So that's a good question. Be an interesting one to kind of dig a little deeper into if you are a team that is hoping to draft Kyle Pitts. To see where he truly might fit. And then I think another big part will be the off season or the pre-draft stuff for him. How big will he measure in at? How fast will he run at? That kind of stuff.
Obviously. Which team could use him the most?
Out of the whole NFL?
Out of the whole NFL, which team needs a dynamic, versatile weapon the most?
Let's see here. Some teams like Jacksonville and the Jets could obviously use him, but they're picking too high for him. And I think the New York Giants and the Chargers would be real interesting spots. They both of them have athletic pass catching tight ends that are going to be entering free agency. So it's kind of, do you want to pay your guy to bring him back, or do you want to draft a young replacement? I think those two teams at first glance would be real interesting. And as I mentioned before, young quarterbacks, I think he would really help out both those quarterbacks.
Do you think he could be a big fit on the Steelers if they somehow find a way to get him? Obviously, they need offensive line, like nobody's business. But like in a parallel universe, do you think that he would be a really good fit on the Steelers, or do you think that they really need to go elsewhere?
I think he'd be a good fit there. Haven't done their needs yet, but it does seem like that they need something else with how they used Eric Ebron last year. The amount of targets that he got, his target share and production, I can only imagine what Pitts would do with that.
Yeah.
Some other teams would be Arizona. Arizona would be an interesting one. They have Hopkins, but they don't really have that other true dynamic pass catcher, and I think he could add an element to that offense that's been missing.
Yeah.
That
makes sense. Well, I'm gonna cut it here because obviously got to keep the video shorter, and then plus, in the case that people want to bring you back on, obviously we'll reach out, try to find something. Obviously, the season's so busy and everything, so you'll come back onto the show sometime.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate your time, RJ. Obviously, keep in touch, stay safe, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Alex. I enjoyed it. You have a good one. Take care.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye.